I think sometimes marketers, we expect that we keep saying to the sales team, send us content, send us what's going on. Almost, but it's too open-ended and almost expecting that sales rep to have an epiphany one day and go, I'm just going to type out some notes and send them through. Like that just doesn't happen in the real world. Yeah. So I think the way to do it is ask a real targeted question to the whole sales team and go, can I have feedback in this area? Don't even try and do word perfect. Just give us the nuggets. And then as a marketing team, you can flesh it out.
Welcome to Pure Gold Marketing. G'day, I'm Edwin Davis, your host. Join me in this series as I speak with marketing and communications experts from across Australian industry. We'll tap into their vast experience and wisdom to bring you valuable insights and perspectives. And of course, some interesting stories along the way. So join us on Pure Gold Marketing, where every episode is worth its weight in marketing gold. G'day everyone, welcome back to Pure Gold Marketing. Now, in today's episode, I'm chatting with Arnie Hill. Arnie is the National Sales Manager at Aletek. Aletek manufacture thermal blankets and exhaust systems for large mining machinery, and I have a really interesting chat with Arnie about how sales teams and marketing teams can join forces and collaborate further to help push marketing and sales goals further. It's a really interesting discussion that I have with Arnie. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's take a listen now. Arnie, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, going well, Edwin. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Now, I'm keen just to start off hearing a bit about your background. Currently, you're working with Aletek. Can you give us an overview of how you got into all things marketing and sales? And also, I'm keen to hear a bit more about Aletek as well. What do they get up to?
Yeah, good question. When I left school, I actually wanted to be an accountant, but we won't go into all that. It was sort of like the old numbers thing. So bit of an interesting story how you sort of go from that to end up in sales. But anyway, in terms of Aletek, I first did a short stint with the company back in about 2016. That was in the underground mining sector in the role of like a BDM effectively. And then I spent some time away from the business, and then the opportunity came up sort of 3-4 years ago to come in as a national sales and marketing manager, which was an awesome opportunity, and took it up. And yeah, fast forward a few years, more recently, I suppose along with Aletek's global expansion, the business has brought in a CMO at a global level. So right here now, I've gone back to solely focusing, you might say, on the Australian sales team.
Fantastic. I'm keen to hear a bit more about how sales teams and marketing teams work together, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more. But I'm keen to hear as well about Aletek for people that don't know. What does Aletek do?
Yeah, sure. So Aletek, we started 18 years ago in a small country town of Bundaberg, if you've heard of that before.
Yep.
And basically...
We've all heard of a Bundaberg rum. Or?
Yeah. Well, probably not quite as well. Aletek's not as well known as obviously that, but I suppose where we really are is a manufacturer for the mining sector, very focused on that. And our tagline's built to protect. So effectively what we do is look, there's a couple of different elements of that. So one of the key elements is around the mobile equipment on these mine sites is preventing the fires.
Okay.
And that's through products like thermal blankets or insulated dual wall exhaust to bring down the surface temperature and prevent fire starting. So that's one element. That's a large part of the business. And the other side of it really is a focus around the underground mines, making the air cleaner underground for the workers.
Okay.
And we do that through diesel particulate filters, so actually treating those diesel emissions at the source, which is obviously the machine itself.
Fantastic. So it's like they're quite technical products, but they've got a real world application to actually make sites safer and workplaces better for people.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is cool. Yeah. So I guess jumping back into your roles with sales and marketing, to break that down even further, for someone that isn't maybe new to the area of sales and marketing, can you even break down what's the difference between sales or marketing? Some people think they're all the same thing. Some people see TV ads and they think that's marketing, but what more is there to marketing? Yeah. What are your thoughts there?
Well, Edwin, I think you're probably the best to answer that question. But look, I suppose to start with what's the same between them, and I think that's a common goal of revenue growth effectively. I know sometimes you think of marketing is maybe a little bit fluffy or something like that, and branding. Yes, it's all important, but really the objective overall is to build revenue. So that's what's the same. Now, I suppose traditionally, looking at simply, marketing, you can almost look at that whole funnel idea where it's more about building that brand awareness. You might say getting the attention of the target audience. And then as you do that through whether that's content, messaging, all these different, channels, it gets to a point where you hope the target audience has the intention to buy. And that's really where sales come to the fore, because they're helping out those client requests, taking that through to closing the sale effectively. Then there's the after-sales support. So maybe that at a real loose, but then I feel you can't have one without the other. Yeah. And you certainly can't have them misaligned. And I know with Aletek being, I suppose, predominantly an account management type of sales model, marketing sales is so intermeshed. Like you can't even, it's not like a particular handoff. It's not like marketing take it to a point and then the old handball to sales, you finish it off. It's intermeshed really right through that process.
Yes, so. Yeah. I heard an interesting stat the other day that, a lot of markets, 95% of the people are not ready to buy at that point. And I guess that's where marketing can help facilitate those other percentages, particularly with like long lead times and sales cycles and that sort of thing. But then when they are ready to buy, they've had that, like you've said, that branding imprinted on their mind, so they know if they've got that particular pain point, they're ready to go. Then that's where they chat with the sales team.
Yeah, sure.
What would you say, like from your experience, because you obviously travel around a bit into mine sites and have a good understanding of various products in the industry, where would you see sales or marketing teams have gone wrong traditionally, or any mistakes you see made, or you think, oh yeah, these guys don't quite have it right? Like, what are some ways that you've seen things go wrong?
I'd be the last one to say going wrong per se, but I could probably say, there's a few observations I've made over time. Probably the first one is it's a real, I don't really know the best way to put it, but it's a very availability-driven market, industry, if you will. And often, whether different products and that, often when the market's hot, demand outstrips supply. So it's all about who's got it. We'll get the deal.
Okay.
So traditionally, it was sort of seen where, sales, I suppose, and it is an industry where a lot of people stay in the industry as well. They might move around a lot. So sales reps typically have a lot of good contacts, which is very pivotal. Relationships is really big in this industry. But from a marketing, sometimes because of that, for whatever reason, marketing can be given a back seat. And then to give an example, you might see, I don't know, social media posts where, you've got a picture of a big machine, which who doesn't like them? Yeah. Or a picture of the fitter's ute with a sunset in the background. Yeah. And then it goes straight to saying, call up, here's our BDM's names and their numbers and their email, like call up today. Yeah. Like it's gone straight to the close. Yeah. There's like that piece in the middle, like the value add content that I feel too often is just missed. And how I feel about it anyway from what we're trying to do at Aletek is when you might say the industry's a bit quieter or the times are not as easy, you might say, in terms of people just wanting it now, you really got to fall back on that brand strength around, does this brand add value? Are they thought leaders in that space? And I think that's an area that's really got some upside in mining anyway.
Yes, yeah. And I think, when it comes to marketing, you've got to be willing to, like you said, not just go in for this hard sale, because no one likes being sold to directly, whether it's someone knocking at your door or someone shoving something down your throat on LinkedIn. No one likes it. And I think you touched on that good point of adding value and actually, whether it's educating or informing the market, telling some kind of story about how that's actually going to have an end benefit for the user, which I think is a good approach to take. You mentioned that you're predominantly an account-based sales kind of configuration.
Yep.
How does marketing fit in with those kind of sales cycles? And is it about, again, giving them interesting information to keep, as they're progressing year on year, or what sort of approach do you take with that style?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I might jump around a little bit from the marketing's angle and I might say the sales team, but it's about, like, there's obviously an element of you're building that brand awareness around, what are the pain points and challenges that we can solve, and going deep on that, building thought leadership. And then ultimately that can come through. A marketing qualified lead could come through as a quote request more information. So you've got that side of it, which is important. And to a degree, even though you might say you've got sales team that are proactive in dealing with this mine site, let's say, you'll still have so many parts of that site that may not know much about Aletek brand. And you end up finding them coming through the website maybe, or interacting with content, and then coming through as a quote request. And we may not have heard about them before, but we've dealt with that mine. So you've always got, just because they might be an existing customer doesn't mean everyone's aware of what you do. So that's where the marketing plays that ongoing role. From a sales point of view, it's around about not just looking at marketing collateral as, hey, when the customer asks for it, or I've got an important presentation coming up, give me some info. It's more about how do you utilise that all the time. So being aware of what you have, being aware of what the customer's looking for, and it comes back to what we said before, it's that value add.
And I guess that's, again, where you've got the informative content, but then you've got that personalised sales or support as well. So you don't just set and forget and people end up dropping off and renewing with a different product or a different supplier the next year sort of thing. So giving them the support along the way. You mentioned the end goal, I mean, for every business is obviously to drive growth and revenue. Walking back from that, what sort of approach does, looking through a sales or marketing lens, how do you then approach, like for Aletek, what's your strategy then to market and sale effectively to the market?
Yeah, well, our vision as a company is to be the most trusted specialist in our field, really, for the tier one mining sites in the regions that we play in. And to do that, and this is speaking fairly generally and almost obviously, but the first thing is I think you need to understand the clients, and particularly when you're dealing in multiple regions as well. And what I mean by understanding, it's not like, oh yeah, that mine site, this is a commodity they dig, and this is kind of the fleet they have. Well, that goes without saying. That's very basic level. It's about going another whole level about, how does that business run, right from a financial and ownership perspective as well. But what are their priorities, and whether that's in regards to safety, how do they run? Are they a contractor and work with that model? Are they an owner miner? So really understanding that and their level of priority they put on the various issues that the fields that we work in is first. Then you can go, okay, what are the clients that are a fit for what we can offer? Because there's nothing worse than having, I suppose, starting off with the wrong foot where you've got the client expectations of something mismatched to what our capabilities are. So you kind of work all that out, and then I think it's all about focus. Then it's about executing a plan aligned with marketing, both marketing and sales, and try not to be all things to everyone. I think that we always keep having to challenge ourselves. Are we slipping back to trying to be all things to everyone and just narrowing that focus? So I think I'm confident, not think that if we do that well, we'll reach where we need to get.
Fantastic. I like the point you hit on with understanding the customer. How, a lot of marketing teams or sales teams might be sitting back in head office, or, there might be a marketing team in Brisbane or Sydney. How do they understand a customer and get out on site? Is it the actual marketing team physically getting out there and chatting to people? How do they grow in that understanding? Because it's tough, isn't it, to even get onto a mine site?
No, I think if you've got a sales team out there, riding shotgun with them and give them the challenge of getting you on the site as a marketing person. And you've got to walk in the shoes. You've got to see the bigger machines, see the environment they're working in, talk to the people on the front line. Yes, the teams that are on the front line, they can put a lot of useful information back, but there's nothing like seeing it for yourself. And I think when you start looking at the emotional factors around what are these challenges, like they're having these challenges on site every day, and you might say in the niche field that we're in, how does that impact the individual? How does that impact the operation? They're factors that you need to see for yourself to really pick that up. So, just get out there.
So you'd recommend marketing teams to
100%.
Not sit back behind the desk, but get out there.
No keyboard warriors.
Get your boots dirty.
100%.
Fantastic. Again, you mentioned Aletek's growth over the years as well, which has been fantastic. I know you're now in South America, North America. Tell me a bit about that growth and how that journey progressed for Aletek, but also as from a marketing and sales lens, How do you adapt to those different markets? Is it the same message going to each of those markets, or do you modify things based on the culture or the country?
Yeah, really good question. So yeah, in 2020 we set up in the North America first, and then soon after we went into Indonesia and South America. And what I mean by going in that's just not supplying to there, but actually setting up teams on the ground and facilities. Now, it's an awesome opportunity and it's a key for growth, but it's also got a lot of challenges because it's not a one size fits all from what we do in Australia, but even between the regions themselves, I think the key thing is, once again, by us having the boots on the ground that know the language, know the culture, know the jargon, know the mining companies we're dealing with, that's been absolutely critical. But the interesting thing too is coming back to what we said earlier about understanding the client, like take the fire mitigation field. Now, fires are happening, you might say, wherever, but their level of awareness around why they're happening, how can we prevent them, is different from region to region. So there's no point going into a region and having a very focused marketing campaign or sales effort right at the pointy end, because people don't really care about your features and benefits if they don't even know they need it in the first place. So, you know what I mean? Your whole messaging suddenly needs to change. So you've got to have the boots on the ground, which we're fortunate to have. But even from the perspective of us in Australia, we need to be getting into those regions ourselves, a bit like we said before about marketing teams. We need to be walking in those shoes, understanding how they tick, what level of care or awareness do these clients have in what we do or the areas we play in.
Yeah, fantastic. I know in our discussions before you came on, you had some good thoughts around sales and marketing teams working together, salespeople thinking like marketers. I was really interested to hear that kind of phrase. What did you mean by that?
I think there's just so much upside there for a salesperson to think more like a marketer. And what I mean by that is, particularly in this industry, relationships are king, really, and there's no denying that. And look, that's over time, and a lot of salespeople may already have relationships, but I think too often we get narrow focused and we think, okay, I go and see clients. Yep. Obviously very important. I ring clients, obviously very important. There's obviously
got a call list to get through each day.
Yeah, you've got all just your general email exchanges, and we think they're the tools we got in the tool bag. But how about thinking more laterally? Like, why can't you, send some messages on LinkedIn Messenger? I'm just throwing out an example here, or there might be a design update or an improvement within the business. You know that's relevant to a client that you've been working with. Why can't you send that one pager? It's all those little things, almost a little bit ninja, if you like, in between times, which can make a good salesman great or dangerous in a good way. You know what I mean? So that's where I feel, and the knowledge is there, like the tools are there. And I think by taking that more lateral thinking, we'll then get them more inquisitive to what else is out there, and then cause sales to collaborate even more internally with the marketing team and so on.
So with that, in terms of the collaboration, from your previous role as sales and marketing manager, how did you, I guess, inspire the teams to work together and collaborate more rather than just being siloed and separate? Are there any tactics or tips you can give to others without giving anything away?
Oh, no, look, I think sometimes from a marketing perspective, we obviously want input from the sales team. Now, an easy way to do that is find an easy way to get them to share photos to begin with and get a bit of a feel. I mean, it might not be photos you can use, but it just gives a bit of a feel of what's going on the front line. So that's a bit of a quick win. But I think sometimes marketers, we expect that we keep saying to the sales team, send us content, send us what's going on. Almost, but it's too open-ended. And almost expecting that sales rep to have an epiphany one day and go, I'm just going to type out some notes and send them through. Like, that just doesn't happen in the real world. So I think the way to do it is ask targeted questions. So for marketing to send like a real targeted question to the whole sales team and go, can I have feedback in this area? And you start to pick up some nuggets and not asking them to do any, like you said, don't even try and do word perfect. Just give us the nuggets. And then as a marketing team, you can flesh it out.
Yes. And I guess the marketing team needs to know what their themes are that's aligning with the overall strategy
100%.
and what they're wanting to, help highlight for that quarter or that month. And feed it in.
Yeah. So we often, to this day, like marketing will sit in a lot of the sales meetings and different things, even if they're not necessarily contributing or having a set thing on the agenda. Just listening to what's happening on the front line is critical. And then you got to involve sales on the back end as well. So send them some proofing, get feedback on what we're doing. If you want to test something from a marketing tactic point of view, pick out and you pick out the people that have got the buy-in. So the ones in the sales team that do come forward with things, reward them by keeping them involved throughout the process, and you'll keep getting more. So double down on the ones that are working well for you within the team, rather than try and search for something from everyone. It's just fruitless. So.
And that's where you get the most, I think, the interesting stories that emerge out of from the ground as well. It might be there's a particular issue that someone's picked up and it's a really good success story that you wouldn't have known otherwise, and that ends up turning into a case study or some piece of content that can be shared, whether it's through a video or a blog insight or something, a newsletter. I know Aletek do well with newsletters and that sort of thing as well. So
100%. Because that, like, for the rep, that might be considered as business as usual, like common knowledge. What do they say? The curse of knowledge, not knowing what everyone else doesn't know. And that's why if you just get marketing involved in meetings and just sharing everything, marketing will be able to find something that goes, hang on, that aligned, like we can double down on that point. And it might be something the sales rep's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think that was a big deal, but hey, yep, cool. And you can really get some leverage out of it. So yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. And then you get people inspired and keen to be involved, and then they're looking for more stories and looking for things on the ground. So yeah, that sounds like a good strategy there. Do you have any particular, case studies or areas where you've seen particular success? Any marketing or sales channels or tactics that have worked particularly well for Aletek in the mining industry?
Good question. Like, I'll probably pick on one little example. So some time ago it was very hot for a particular one of our products. It's so important that it's fitted correctly for it to be effective and fulfilling its purpose as a safety product effectively. And that was a challenge in the industry. So we put a lot of time, effort, money into building out different resources using different mediums to help sites with that. Now, that's not a particular marketing or, we're not exactly attracting people in on that, something like that. But that there, even with clients that haven't yet used us, demonstrating that, they look at that and go, wow, like it demonstrates thought leadership. Like there's the proof's in the pudding, it's right there. And it shows Aletek's desire to always be adding value, and it's literally put in front of them. So something you might say it doesn't sound significant, but just going deep on that, in the beginning we had to obviously understand what that pain point was, but something that small has actually had really good success for us.
Fantastic. And I guess that then becomes an asset or a resource that can be used throughout over the years to come.
100%, and then you just keep refining it and making it better. So
Fantastic. So when it comes to getting your sales and marketing team on board, I guess how do you inspire and engage your marketing and sales teams to get them on board? Once you've got a vision set, you've got things lined up. How do you take it from there to get their buy-in?
Good question. I think we're always learning, I suppose, in that area definitely. But one thing that I've probably come to realise over the years is really explain the why behind what you've set out. So there's one thing to set it out, and you might have had part of the team involved in strategising it in the beginning, but you think you got all the plan laid out, you lay it out, this is how we're going to do it, and a lot gets spent around the what and the how. But the important thing is actually explaining the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this way? And bringing that in early and just open it up for team discussion. Because if and then you trust you have an environment that's safe enough for people to feel like they can challenge different things and put different things on the table. Because what I've found is if you don't do that, you end up having to loop back around later to do it anyway to get the buy-in from the team. So you may as well save the time and dig into that early on. And I think for after that, it's just about repetition. There's a lot of things, whether it's core values, brand promise, vision, you've got to kick off meetings with it. You've got to just keep saying it like a broken record. because we tend to remember a lot, but how many people in the team can actually know it off by heart, and you need that. So I think that repetition piece is big, but just getting it right at the beginning is something that I've still learning. For sure.
Okay. Yep. So it's having that openness with the team, sharing, and not just assuming.
Yes, exactly.
As well, which is cool. Yep. One thing I've found, like in mining as well, often there's really long sales cycles, whether it's to renewing contracts or purchasing new products or services. How, I guess, do you nurture and build trust with clients with such a long potential lead time, or if you've got a multi-year contract, how do you kind of build and nurture those relationships?
Good question, and feel free to give me all the tips you got yourself. But I suppose, to the earlier point there, relationships are very important. So you'll find that initially that gets established with one or two key people. I think the first thing is utilise the beginning for the sales rep to ask to be introduced to others on site. So really spread the net as wide as you can, even with people that you might say may not be directly involved with your day-to-day, but get to meet as many of those potential decision makers you possibly can. From there, it's really about maintaining that. Now, you can't just turn up to site every second week and just be there. You've got to have a reason for that to be there. You always got to have a purpose. I think that really is the key point with every interaction is having a purpose for the call, because there's one thing you might say through the initial part of the sales process, but if there's a bit of a wait, or you might say business as usual, how do you have touch points but with a purpose?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they just get annoyed.
Well, that's any industry as well. For us, we find that as well. You can't just reach out and say, hey, do you want a video? It's going to piss people off. But you need a purpose to actually get in touch with people. So what do you find? Is that sort of a matter of sharing updates on the product or other industry relevant information, or what do you find are those kind of touch points where you can have a purpose to reach out?
It's those bit like we said earlier about thinking laterally. Like what are the anything happening in the industry that you can share, something relevant to that challenge that they're facing or have moving on, and just like a little nugget. And when you send it through to them, don't finish it off by like, where's your next sale? Yeah. But you just don't even just take the salesy part of it totally out of it, and you're just legitimately adding value with an interaction, and then changing that up. Use different channels. Don't, like we said earlier, don't just be on the phone. And if you have that planning piece, like what is my purpose and objective out of this, it does away with that traditional, I'm just touching base. Yeah. And there's nothing worse, I'm just touching base. And you've got to be aware too, in the mining industry, there's rosters. So you've got people that are off-site at a given time. So understanding the individuals you're dealing with as well around the logistics, like are they on site, what do they typically work, when's a good time to contact them. But to your point, like I think you did it to me the other day, you shared a message on LinkedIn with a publication that I hadn't seen and found a lot of interest in. That's a perfect example of I think what's best. And then from a relationship standpoint, particularly if it's a new relationship, it's about building trust. Now you might say, well, I can't really demonstrate that till they buy the product or whatever it might be, but you actually can, and it can come down to the small things. I will find might be that first meeting and you say, I want to get your information by Friday. You've got to get it by Friday. And if you keep your word on the small things and you do exactly as you promise, that subconsciously builds up that trust. And if you do that consistently over time, it can be a winner over a long sales period.
That's it. Particularly, I think those relationships, like these days, some people just live by email, and there's obviously that's a good way of communicating, but actually having the in-person relationships again, and whether it's getting out to attending expos and things like that. How have Aletek found with different mining expos or events, do you find much value in attending those, or do you have, are you exhibiting at many of those, or is there where do you see that place for a company like Aletek?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't want to shoot them down in flames or anything, but we find them really good for the international, like in our global regions where we're new to the scene or fairly new. So it's a good way to get the brand out there. In terms of Australia, we're very selective. We find them a little bit hit and miss. And to be honest, the most value we get out of them is with the collaboration with the other exhibitors, which are your OEMs and different ones. rather than literally the people, our target audience, coming to a stand. So it's probably about that aspect, and we tend to stay away from the big broad brush, massive big mining expos. We try and be a little bit targeted in the ones that we approach. So I think they're important, but we certainly don't have the perfect plan on how to get the most or which ones we should be going to, anything like that. Yeah. But I think if you sit back and just wait for people to come to a stand, that just hasn't really paid well for us.
Yeah. No, that's it. Often you can find good value even just attending, but then interacting with others along the way.
Yep.
I liked your point about, you just touched on OEMs. Obviously, Aletek products are going into these big mining machines, whether it's Liebherr 9800s or the T284s or CAT machines, Komatsu. Where do you see the value in, or the importance of connecting and relating with OEMs, even if you may not be selling directly to them? How does that relationship help in terms of the marketing or building that trustworthiness if you've got the OEM sort of collaborating or you collaborating with them?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And it's probably a little bit different between different OEMs. They have different business models. Some of them are dealers and some of them are, so you might say, direct branches. I think making yourself known and building that relationship. So as you sort of touched on, the real, I suppose, decision comes to the end user, which is the mine site. But let's say they decide that, okay, they need an Aletek product. If that OEM knows Aletek and things go well when they deal with Aletek, like it's not a pain to deal with Aletek, it just makes that, you increase your chances of everything going smoothly. So it's a really important piece, is to have those relationships there. But I feel as a business, if we keep to our brand promise, the OEMs are happy, and really works in well with how we target the end users really as well.
Fantastic. Another, I guess, tactic or another channel, you mentioned like the LinkedIn newsletters. How have you found implementing those, and have you seen much engagement with LinkedIn newsletters? I know they came out, a year ago, 18 months ago, as an option for company pages to put out a newsletter to anyone that's following the page. Tell me what that journey's been like for Aletek. Yeah,
we probably haven't kept up consistently with the release of them, but we have done quite a lot. I think it's really good because I believe it's still the case that it goes to whoever's subscribed to it, it goes to their email as well.
Straight into their inbox,
So really it's just another forum which otherwise, like, for example, an email blast or taking people to a blog post, you're getting something extra or something different coming from that LinkedIn angle. We've found it good. In terms of engagement, I think it's more of a slow burn. We don't get as many eyeballs on it per se, right off the bat. But the good thing about it is it's got so much search value, whether that's SEO or whatever. But if you craft the article well, once again, if you're legitimately adding value and going deep on something and thought leadership, it's always there. So it's just people come across it over time. And then if someone's gone to look for Aletek and looking through their stuff, it shows credibility off the bat that, okay, there's some solid content here. So.
Fantastic. Well, I reckon we've covered just about everything that we want to chat about. It's been really interesting to hear your insights from both the sales and the marketing perspective, and to see how those sort of teams can collaborate together. I think to hear how sales teams can think more like marketers, and how marketers can help support the sales team as well. Thank you so much for coming on, Arnie. Appreciate that, and look forward to seeing Aletek out there and kicking some more goals.
No, thanks, Edwin, and thanks for having me on. And onwards and upwards for Pure Gold. It's good to see you really getting out there and making some great content. So well done on that.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, you can find more on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Hit the subscribe button to get more marketing gold. And also, please share this episode with your colleagues who might find this interesting. You can always find me, Edwin Davis, on LinkedIn, or search Pure Gold Films to find out more about our video production and content services for the Australian industry. Thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next episode.